Hola amigos de Wine News TV, les invito a conectar conmigo y con mis invitados en Wine News TV On The Go, un podcast que a su vez es un espacio donde aprenderás sobre el mágico mundo del vino a través de invitados de todas partes del mundo que nos contarán sobre sus proyectos para obsequiarnos de forma embotellada música, fuego y leones, como decía el gran maestro argentino Jorge Luis Borges en su poema Soneto al Vino. Seguimos, mi gente, aquí en el Fine Wine Celebration de Plaza Cellar. Estamos en el Sheraton y ahora vamos a hablar de una bodega que adoro, que adoro. Estoy con Scott Shapley de Roar. This is a winery that I adore. I was telling Scott off mic that about 16, 15 years ago or so, I don't recall exactly. I had a friend in the States that told me, have you had the Roar Pinots? And I said, no. And then I maneuver my way in getting him to buy me a bottle and send it in a suitcase. And I was so happy when I heard that you guys were finally here with Plaza Cellar. Tell me a little bit about Roar, the project, the winery, who's behind it, what's the philosophy, and then we'll taste the two wines.
Absolutely. So I'm Scott. I'm the winemaker, actually. So my hands were stained a few days ago, but they're cleaning up now that harvest is finished. Roar was started by Gary and Rosella Francioni back in 2000. So it's been a good long while. They've been around for a good time, but it's a family-owned and family-run business. Nick and Adam Francioni, the two sons, are both part of the whole operation as well. Adam works more on the farming side. Nick works more on the winery side now with me. But both of them have done every job from the ground up, cleaning drains, pruning vines. They just know everything about the whole operation. The Francionis were originally farmers. Their ancestors were dairy farmers, then they moved into vegetables and row crops. And then now they're actually farming grapes for wine as well as lemons and avocados. So it's great. They're a good farming family. When Gary and Rosella first started Roar, they really wanted to be able to know what it took to grow great grapes for fine winemaking. So they wanted to see what happened in the cellar with the grapes, that the way they picked them, the way they harvested. And that's really how it all got started. They started in 2001, actually, in Santa Rosa when Adam Lee was making their wines. And he made their wines for 6 years or so. Then they moved to San Francisco with Ed Kurtzman, just as they moved closer to the vineyards, because the vineyards have been in Monterey the whole time. They're all family owned. And then I took over from Ed in 2013. And I feel like the new guy still, but I've been there now for a good 11 years. So.
What's the origin of the name Roar?
So it's interesting. Roar, it's twofold. First of all, one of the main aspects of the Santa Lucia Highlands is that it's this valley that's coming off of Monterey Bay, and you get this wind that rips through there in the afternoon.
So that's the sound of the wind roaring in.
It roars right through there, and that's really what makes it a region that could grow.
Is it Katy Perry that has a song called Roar?
She does, actually. That's right. We need to get together with her somehow. But it's fantastic. So that wind, I can tell the winery is closer to the ocean. And whenever the wind picks up there, I can say, okay, yes, we're going to cool it down. Yeah. The vines could get very hot otherwise, and it wouldn't be a good place for Pinot, except that coastal influence really, really mitigates that.
It does so well to Pinot.
It cools it off and lets it take a break. And so that's one reason. And then the other thing is that the Francionis are all great sports fans. They love sports, and they love being in that crowd and hearing the roar of the crowd when someone makes a goal.
Oh, I get it. All right.
Just like that roar, and you'll see even the logo.
Which is typically a sound of some kind of happiness or at least passion.
Absolutely.
A passionate scream, right?
That's very well put. It's just like that. And in some ways, I think that the wind roaring through there is kind of the same. It's like that joy of the coastal influence coming in, meeting the grapes, and I can get really philosophical about it.
My first bottle of Roar came in a suitcase of a friend of mine, wrapped around underwear. All right, let's get into the first wine, the Pinot Noir. This is obviously the Pinot because of the color. Cheers, man. It's such a pleasure to have you here in my podcast. Let's get into this first one. What can you tell the audience, the the Wine News TV followers about this one?
Well, so our Santa Lucia Highlands blended Pinot Noir it's wonderful because it's actually a blend of all 5 of our different Pinot vineyards in the Santa Lucia Highlands. So we always make sure that there's some from each vineyard, whether or not we need it to be there. We want it to really represent the region. So we go very specific on our vineyard designated wines. So we want to make sure Rosellas tastes like Rosellas and it represents that terroir. But when you get to the Santa Lucia Highlands, it's a pretty broad region that has a lot of different nuances. So we want to also encapsulate the broader essence of Santa Lucia Highlands in one bottling as well. So this is our blend of everything from, it goes Rosellas, Gary's, Sobranis, Sierra Mar, and even Pizzoni Vineyard.
I love, obviously, the textbook Christmas spice note, like Pinot Noir of this quality to me smells like Christmas, but it's very aromatic wine. I mean, the nose is rich, but it's not saturated. It's not this overcooked. There are some Pinots nowadays, which is not your case, that smell like cotton candy and sometimes smell like caramel. They're like manufactured wines. But here you got that cola, you got the spice, you got the forest floor. This is definitely not Burgundy. This is the generosity of the American West Coast sun. But you got some ethereal and saline, sanguine, bloody notes that speak to me of this sort of iron undertone of this. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's if a it's sort of a hypothetical cross of an American who goes to Paris, falls in love with a French woman, they have a kid, right?
And there you have
it. And it's a combination of that rich fruit of California, and you have the elegance of the French know-how, if you will, the Burgundy know-how.
I need to get you to write my tasting notes.
Maybe, right? Maybe. Delicious wine because it has salinity at the end, the influence of the ocean, of course, the wind, and then there's this spicy, refreshing, and at the end, this lingering, salty, crunchy red fruit. It's a lovely Pinot Noir, Scott.
I'm very glad you like it. I actually like it a lot too, and I have to admit that 2022, for us at least, I found to be a very aromatic vintage. We get great aromas in general, but in 2022, I think that there's a perfumed quality to some of the wines, not over the top, as you said, but that expressiveness. I was really excited in 22 because when we first bottled them, they were very closed down, very tight, and I was a little bit worried. I mean, I always stress out about my own winemaking. It's like, oh, what have I done this time? And, but I watched it, and within 3 months, they blossomed and really started showing off, and it's never gone back since then. So
I love the rose hip quality here. It's ethereal. It's a feminine wine, and I say this very respectfully. When I mention the word feminine, I say it because I know that women is a more evolved, females is a more evolved species, right? Is a more evolved creation. Well, gorgeous wines.
It may be power of suggestion too, but Rosella's Vineyard, because it's further north in our region, it's closer to the ocean. So you get the fog, you get the wind earlier, and it takes longer for it to go back out. So it's a cooler part of the region. And you do get a little bit more of the red fruit, a little bit more of and so Rosella's being one of the components in here. You get, when we have feminine, Rosella herself, Rosella Francione, she's feminine, but she's a strong woman. She's, she's not a wilting
like my
flower.
wife,
exactly.
my wife.
So, which is great. This is the best combination. So I love when we do get feminine qualities in our wine. It's not just a,
Napoleon said that the mother is the perfect creature because it has the heart of a woman and the brain of a general.
That's very well put.
All right, let's go to Syrah. I love American Syrah when it's well made. Syrah, obviously, its birthplace is Rhone, and we know the Aussies, our friends from Australia, have sort of claimed the second home of Shiraz in this case. But to me, American Syrah, and I've never had this one, has
Okay.
a capacity to grow and evolve. Let's get into this one, my
All
friend.
right. I make more Pinot Noir than anything else, but I love Syrah, and it's I want the world to know more about Syrah because I think a lot of people don't understand it, and I think probably part of that reason is because in France you kind of know what you're getting, and in Australia you know what you're getting, but in California you can kind of do both.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
a
do
mixed
cool
bag.
climate, you
It's a
can
mixed
do,
bag for
and so I
sure.
think in some ways I almost wish that we could say if it's hotter than a certain climate, call it Shiraz, and when it's colder than a certain climate,
Call it
call it
Syrah.
Syrah. But our
Yeah,
climate
but
is pretty
you
cool for
you
it.
have an in between here. You have an in between because it's not Rhone, it's not Australia. You have the cracked pepper, you have that lovely meaty note, you have the minerality to it. It's nice. It's a very nice Syrah. You make much less Syrah than Pinot, of course.
Much less if we make, you know, a mile of Pinot Noir, we make about a tenth of a mile of Chardonnay, and then we make, 100 feet of Syrah. So it's I was doing that with my hands, so you couldn't see it on the podcast. So I was trying to describe it that way. But we make, in this case, we make about 100 cases. So that's just 4 barrels, and by our scale, that's very, very small. But we love it enough that we want to keep doing it.
As a winemaker, in many ways, your wines are your kids, sons, daughters. Obviously, the Pinot Noir in Santa Lucia Highlands makes all the sense in the world. What do you want to tell your consumers, your tasters, your clients about Syrah? What do you want to convey to them when you put this bottle out there and somebody somewhere in the world buys it? What do you want them to get from this?
I think that Syrah is a very interesting wine in that it's got a lot of spice, it's got a lot of depth and darkness to it, and a lot of people will go for a Cabernet Sauvignon, which is delicious. I love Cabernet Sauvignon, but the dirty little secret of Bordeaux is often they slip some Syrah in there to make sure you've got
Oh, of
that
course, yeah.
darkness and the color and everything. So there Syrah plays into things that people like a lot more than they realize. And it really can be a very different creature when it's grown in hot climates versus cold climates. Santa Lucia Islands is a relatively cool climate for Syrah, but as you say, it's middle ground. You can get some heat in different spots. Um, I think that it goes surprisingly well with spicy foods,
Of course, yeah.
which is some people don't think about red wines for that, but I do like. I like my Syrah with spices, even Indian spices and Middle
I
Eastern
think this
spices.
this wine is delicious, but it's a baby.
It
It's a
is.
baby. This wine, it's in its infancy. Again, I always say this as a lawyer, former prosecutor. We should be put in jail for committing a felony drinking this so young. I mean, it's tight. It's obviously has lovely aromatics, but I think on the palate, it has so much to give in the coming decade or so. This
So
is high quality fruit.
if we put the cork on it now and we can talk again on Friday, then we'll see what it tastes like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's but it's got this fresh, this minty, this sort of quality. You got the textbook much more of a French interpretation than Australia, for sure. Uh,
We do use whole cluster, so the stems included on this wine, about 30% in this case, and we don't use as much oak. So new oak, I think, goes very well with Pinot Noir, and it can go with Syrah, but it takes very little. It's strange. You'd think that Syrah, being a bigger wine, could
yeah,
handle more oak, but it doesn't. It
you can
conflicts.
damage it. You
It
can damage
absolutely
it.
it
Yeah,
goes it goes
too
way over
much
the top.
makeup, you do away with the natural beauty of the grape.
Absolutely. So we like to let the texture like and the structure of the fruit itself and
I
those stems
smell the
come out.
wine and
So
I hear the wine telling me, "Wait for me, wait for me. I'll get there." It's gorgeous. Right now, I think it's a wine that, assuming that we go from stage zero, super close, stage five, super evolved, I think it's three and three. Three in terms of evolution and the aromatics, and three on the palate. I think this wine is going to be gorgeous 48 hours from now. We leave it open, and then in a couple of years it's going to be awesome. And keep making Syrah, man.
absolutely.
Really keep making Syrah. Thank you
I
so
can't help
much.
myself.
Thank you so much for this. Mi gente, prueben los vinos de Roar, delicioso, es un Pinot Noir maravilloso. You also make Chardonnay, right?
We do.
Yeah, you guys.
It's a great region for
Do
Chardonnay.
you have Chardonnay at the fair downstairs?
We don't,
You don't.
but you should come out to California.
I have to go. I have to go for sure. I'll definitely make the trek. Obviously, later next year. I have a couple of trips planned for next year to do content. Prueben los vinos de Roar, Scott. Thank you so much. Vinos deliciosos, Pinot Noir mágico, majestuoso, elegante, etéreo y el Syrah. Bueno, es un vino que está lindo, lindo ahora, pero con el paso del tiempo va a dar mucho, mucho más de qué hablar. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Salud.
What would you say? Like, viva por quién? Por quién?
¿Por quién?
Por quién? Wait, is it
Puertorriqueño.
Viva Puerto Rico.
or the
Boricua, Borinquen, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
That's a Taíno name.
I don't speak Spanish. I
Oh,
need
it's
to do
okay.
it.
Viva Borinquen, viva
Viva
Borinquen.
Borinquen.
Viva Borinquen. Thank you so much. Y viva Roar. Mi gente, hemos hablado de unos vinos deliciosos que consigues, por supuesto, con Plaza Cellar, la Boutique Dubán. Sigan escuchando el contenido que estamos aquí en una maratón de entrevistas con Plaza Cellar y la Boutique Dubán. Recuerden dejarnos una reseña y seguirnos en el podcast. Un abrazo, mi gente. Será hasta la próxima. Este fue el episodio de hoy. Recuerda dejarnos una reseña para que nos ayudes a crecer, suscribirte y recomendarnos con tus amigos amantes del vino. No importa cuán avanzado estés en el recorrido de enamorarte de aquello que decían sobre el vino. Son uvas transformadas en poesía. Aquí hay espacio para todos. Salud y como siempre, dale share.